You were never meant to use every color in the box. You were meant to use the ones that set your soul on fire. And you were definitely not meant to use them trying to save everyone else. The truth is, a meaningful life isn't made of everything you could do, but it's built from what you actually love to do. The colors that keep you reaching because they feel like home. So yesterday I was scrolling and I came across Richard Arnold, and he talks about that big box of crayons and how many colors go untouched, and he just has so many valuable points that I think I can only do it justice if I go ahead and share his reel right here with you today. So this is on YouTube. It's Richard Arnold, and we're going to challenge my back room there to share this with you. Maybe? Here we go. Oh, we got to turn up the volume. I'm not hearing it, Andy. Andy, we're just going to go ahead and skip it because I imagine it's when you bring it in to share it, you've got to do a volume thing. So it's okay. You guys saw it. It really exists. This is Richard Arnold, and a new person I'm going to be following because I really got a lot of really great things to say. So he was talking about this big box of crayons, and that, when we were kids, we rem there was the big box of crayons. It was 128 crayons, and that there were crayons that came in a box of 8, 16, I think 24 and 64, and then the big one, the 128. And it really he talks about how there's the magnificent colors, the macaroni and cheese, the forest green and magenta, and colors that we didn't really learn as basic colors. And these were like the creme de la creme colors. And there was every shade of pink and blue and green and all the beautiful colors in that 128 box of crayons. And he felt that he always wanted that box of crayons, but he didn't really ever have those. But he also noticed that at the end of the school year, there were a lot of crayons in that box that did not get used. They still had their factory edge. And even though there's some crayons that have their factory edge because they've never been used, there's other crayons that have been used and worn. We've peeled the paper off of them. For those who colored vigorously, they would have a fingerprint mark in the side of it where the heat of your hand went through, just all of those things. So looking at life as being that whole big box of crayons. And I remember for me, I wanted the big box of crayons, not because I wanted 128 colors to choose from. I wanted the sharpener. I wanted that sharpener. And that really hit me hard this week. And I think that it might hit something for you too, because life isn't about using every possible crayon, but use the things that work for you, the things that resonate with you. And for me, if I had that box of 128 crayons, I would feel obligated to use every single crayon so that crayon felt that it was needed. And that just kind of reminds me of that pattern of obligation, you know, how if it's there, you have to use it. And part of it's just kind of how my brain works. I categorize a lot of things when I look at a sales ad or a brochure. And if it's a new service or something, I'm constantly thinking, who's the person that could use this? If I learn a new skill, how can I share this with the world? Who's the person who needs this? Or if there's a class to take, I feel like, I have a friend who says I'm a perpetual learner. I don't think I'm learning, I'm just soaking it all up. But the reality is we use what we have. So when it comes down to making a new dish, so cooking in the kitchen, I am really big on looking up what's the substitute. If I don't have this seasoning, and I know that Grand Marsala was a seasoning that I fell in love with and I ran out of it. And it was like, oh, and being here in rural Iowa, we don't have a lot of spices to choose from in the grocery store. So here I'm looking up, how can I make it? When you don't have your pumpkin pie spice, what are the spices that go to it? And learning early on that all spice is not all the spices together. It is an of its own spice. But I think that these types of things shape us as to how we get so obligated. And it for me, it makes me feel that I'm obligated to save the world, or I'm obligated to do things for other people, and a lot of times it comes at your own expense, which then brings me back to one of my favorite little taglines. It even used to be above my signature line on my checks, back when checks were a thing that we used a lot, and it says, "Happiness is wanting what you have." And so as we begin to realize, yes, there are boxes of 128 colors, but if you're not using them and they don't benefit you and they don't bring you lots of joy, um, after having this conversation with my friend yesterday, after watching this short, it's like, yeah, I don't feel the need for a peach or a flesh crayon today. I'm not reaching out there, not using those crayons, and I think of how much everything really needs to be about doing what you love. And I used to always say, your job. If you don't enjoy your job, they can pay you all the money in the world, but if you don't enjoy it, it's not worth going to work. I mean, yes, you have to pay bills. Don't get me wrong, but finding something you love, then it's not really a job, and you're compensated. Your compensation feels in alignment with what you're doing when you're doing what brings you joy. So, and then I thought, when I was thinking about this box of crayons and having so many crayons, and I think about standing at the sink one night, washing dishes on the evening. My kitchen window faces the west, and there's this brilliant, bright sunset coming in. And my daughter was probably around 4 years old, and she had a piece of plain paper and a black ballpoint pen. And from this, she drew the sunset. Now, if anybody was just looking at this picture and they didn't have the context of what she was looking at and the fact that she chose to use one thing, you would think it was like maybe even angry scribbles, but it wasn't. She had the tree drawn, and then she had all these sketchy lines, and these lines conveyed the energy of the brilliance of that sunset that she was seeing. And so even from one black ink pen, you could see the energy in her picture, and you could understand that this was a beautiful sunset. And my girls would get art supplies gifted to them. And I remember watching my daughter working on a project, and it was the little canvas cubes. There were 9 cubes that made up this series. And she had drawn all the princesses, and she was working on them. And if you've ever worked in paint, when you're doing different parts of a picture, especially if it's a color you've blended, you want to use that color everywhere you need it. And so all of the princesses had all of their faces, and their hands were all painted. And I said, "Are you going to finish this?" Because it sat in the corner of the living room for quite some time. And then she says, "But mom, I don't have all the colors." I'm like, "What? These are gorgeous. I mean, this is amazing flesh tone. I never painted people because I always had trouble with that color." And then I realized that she was working with a very, very basic set. She only had the primary colors. red, blue, yellow, and white. And here she was painting all the Disney princesses with these beautiful flesh tones and their dresses and being able to make all of these colors. Once again, she didn't need that full spectrum of colors. She did not need 128 crayons. She can mix the colors together and create the effect that she's looking for. It's just it's just amazing. What you have is clearly enough. Celebrate what you have and enjoy what you have, not looking for those shiny objects. And as a business owner, it's really tempting to look for all those shiny objects, and everyone is doing those hard sells. You got to have this. If you don't have this, you don't have this. You can't grow your business. You can't do this. You can't do that. Um, I recently had a conversation with the Yellow Pages fella, and he's like, "Well, you've advertised with us," and like, I don't even have a landline anymore. I'm not going to pay for an ad for a phone number when my services are very specific. People are not going to just be paging through the Yellow Pages and stumble across me. And he felt threatening on the phone, and I said, I really don't need you telling me how to do my business. But this is how so many things are. If you don't have this, you can't be, and everything else. And I want everybody to turn and look inside. Look at all the amazing gifts and skills and what colors you do have that you bring to the table. So let's drop in kind of our theta healing right now, because I think that so many of us get caught up in this. And with theta healing, if you've not experienced it before, you need to say yes out loud to accept the healings that are going to come down, the downloads and the forgiveness. Say yes out loud. The energy will be here today for those who are watching us live. If you're catching us on the replay, do hashtag replay and write yes in the comments to accept the work that's coming down. So I would like to remove that obligation to help others at the expense of yourself. Like to remove um, that feeling that that you're responsible for everybody else. Remove the obligation to save the world. Um, the world is here doing its own thing, and if we all start pulling in, using our favorite colors and our gifts and the skills that we have, and not always constantly reaching for more, but doing what we do and doing it to its fullest. Imagine how much better the world will be, and they will be able to help themselves. So let's also anchor in that it's a choice to help. It's a choice to use our skills and to learn at a pace that feels comfortable, because you can only perform at your best when it doesn't take away from you emotionally and physically. Yes, you need to test yourself every once in a while. You need to push those limits, but not at the total expense of yourself and leading you to burnout. And let's also download the belief that it's safe to use what you love and to release what is no longer needed, what no longer serves you. If you like those beliefs, just say yes out loud. We'll get those going. We'll do the forgiveness, as to forgiving yourself for continuing to accept more burdens and not acknowledging when it's at the expense of yourself and taking away from the joys that you have in life. So we'll do that work now. Say yes out loud. Just thinking, a box of crayons brings up all of this about the box of crayons you did or didn't have. So if you'd like to continue this work a little bit more throughout your day or throughout the week, let's practice reaching out for the colors that we love, because we're not trying to impress anyone. We're not going to rescue anyone. It's because it's what brings us life. It puts that fire back in your soul. So, some things you could think about journaling about, what are the most colors in your life? So, what is it that you do the most often? And what are you most often looking and and reaching for to do, to use? What are your tools? What are your happiness? What is your joy? And where are you using those tools as a matter of because it is joyful or because it's an obligation? And so kind of looking at some of those obligations and specifically those obligations that are costing you. Some things are not joyful. They're just burning us out. And so being aware of that, looking where are you ready to release some of those colors back into the box. They can stay at the other side of the box, you know? Um, and how do you organize your tools? And what colors do you already have that you love? What are your skills? What are your favorite things to do? So, what are those things? What is it that brings you happiness that you already have? And how can bring it back to that wanting what you already have? And so enjoying that. You don't need all the colors. You just need the courage to use the ones that you love. Use it, love it, make something beautiful with it. Pull those spices together, mix up your wardrobe, how you style it. You have all the things and all the pieces to set your best foot forward and to receive all of the abundance the world has for you. So if you've heard anything today that you like, don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop us a message if you want to learn how to get in contact with us. The best way to get in contact with me is at amandabethhealing.com/linktree. It'll put you on whatever social platform you want to connect on. It'll be great. Then I have a few announcements. So tonight we are on the Chronic Health Collective at 7 o'clock with Christy Boyd Johnson hosting with Jessica Hammock and Leslie Klein and myself. And we're just going to be talking about those narcissistic relationships and how life can be better and looking at those things that are really helpful to you. And let's see, Friday night, December 12th, is going to be a live workshop at 6:15 in Mount Pleasant, Iowa at the Holistic Gypsy. It is about holiday sanity. You can certainly get your tickets at amandabethhealing.com/sanity. And I will be going there early and offering some mini energetic clearing sessions and some healing there as well. Can reserve your spot at amandabethhealing.com/gypsies. Definitely reach out to me if you have any other questions or need clarification on those. There is a free discovery call if you just want to learn more about homeopathy, uh, the theta healing that I do, or don't forget about the Iowa Salt Pod as well. And big news, my book, Stepping into Power, my next book is going out to beta readers this week. We are getting closer and closer to publication. So I thank you all for being with me today. We kept it kind of short and sweet, but everybody's got so much going on right now. That's what we needed. So take care, and we'll see you next week on Transformation Tuesday. Tonight we'll be with the Chronic Health Collective at 7 p.m. Central Time.